Another billion-dollar boondoggle in the blue state of Massachusetts, which is now scrapping its migrant shelter program. Governor Maura Healey announcing the closure of all remaining hotel shelters in that state.
Yeah, it's going to contradict law, but we'll get into that. Massachusetts has already spent more than $800 million on housing more than 4,000 migrant families just this fiscal year. And that number is expected to balloon to as much as $1 billion cumulatively by the end of the year.
Now, there were some warnings over the price tag. The governor ignored them, and now the taxpayer is bearing the brunt of it. For more, let's bring in a former Massachusetts migrant shelter director, Jon Fetherston. It's great to have you with us, and I want to get your reaction to this. I mean, this is happening in New York City as well. We had a huge crisis here with migrants, sanctuary city, taxpayer dollars going to food, shelter, education, health benefits, and everybody said that was the right thing to do. The problem is that it bankrupts cities and states.
Absolutely. Jackie and David, thanks for having me on this evening. You know, here's the bottom line with Maura Healey, our governor. She's lied to us for the last 2.5 years, and now she expects us to believe anything that she says when it comes to these migrant shelters. She has systematically failed the taxpayers in Massachusetts, but even more importantly, from a humanitarian standpoint, she's failed the migrants. She has set the migrants up for failure. So now I can sit there and say that she has wasted billions of dollars and set these poor people up for failure.
She's not only set the migrants up for failure, she ends up having to go back to the people. What do you do now? The gravy train from the Biden administration is not there. That's part of the issue here. And you know the name Taxachusetts and why it's applied. Where is she going to go now that the migrants are there? Unless they self-deport, they're not leaving. And you do have a state law, a shelter law in place.
Well, David, the problem is now that she's closed what we call her Healey hotels, and now she's placing people into residential apartments throughout the Commonwealth. My words, bribing landlords to house people that you normally wouldn't house, and spending up to $50,000 through a program called Home Base. So now she is spreading the problem across the entire Commonwealth rather than just, you know, the 100 or so hotels that people were in. So now you're going to have impacts on your local school systems. You're going to have impacts with your local police and fire departments. You're going to have systematic problems with landlords not getting what they were promised. You know, you sign a lease with somebody for 4 people, and it turns out there's 9 people living in these shelters. The governor has really put Massachusetts in a bind with this. She hasn't thought this out. She's trying to do it with all smoke and mirrors. And she's really, I mean, the failure is the only option she has here in Massachusetts. Just admit that she failed. Let's bring in the government. I've asked for the Department of Justice to come in and do a thorough investigation on the audit of the money trail on this. We need federal help here in Massachusetts. We really do.
Well, I was going to ask about that, what consequences there are, if any, and if there are any federal funds involved where you could tie it to a larger probe.
Oh, absolutely. You know, as a shelter director, I know a lot of federal funds were going towards this, and I can certainly point to the Department of Justice to where some of the fraud is. We actually have a Democrat auditor here in Massachusetts, Diana DiZaglio. She's already done the audit. She's already come back to the governor and said, hey, these no-bid contracts are wrong. There's been spending frauds. The governor totally disregarded it. So the DOJ has to just come in and confirm what the auditors already come up with, and somebody needs to go to jail, and it's probably Maura Healey.
Well, then a quick one, if you will, John. What happens if the DOJ comes in, finds this fraud? Where does it go next within the state?
Well, you know, the legislature's been very quiet about all of this. You know, it's my personal opinion. Governor Healey never thought she was going to be the governor of Massachusetts in August of 2025. She actively campaigned for the Biden and Harris campaign. She thought she was going to be the Attorney General of the United States of America, and the election didn't go her way, thankfully. And she never thought that she was going to have to deal with this, and she's just looking for an exit ramp to get out of this. But somebody needs to be held accountable, and somebody needs to go to jail.
She should be prosecuted. Jon Fetherston,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you. You're right.
Thanks
she
for having
failed
me.
everyone all around.